We're at the halfway mark in the federal election campaign. We're all going to the polls Saturday, May 3rd, to choose which party and which leader we put our trust in to run the country and steer us out of the quagmire of escalating living costs, petrol prices, a housing market virtually shut tight to first home buyers, and a rental crisis that has more of us than ever before unable to afford to put a roof over our heads and find shelter for our families. Since the election was called, leaders of both major parties have been wooing the electorate with tax cuts, financial solutions to the housing crisis, and pledges to give us everything from more GPs to cheaper beer. But once again, the only thing either leader has been less than sure about, it seems, is how it's all going to be paid for. Both parties have been criticised for not revealing how the billions of dollars in promises already made in this campaign will be paid for. Jeni and Ray Bonell live in Toowoomba. They have a large family, 16 kids all up, although not all of their kids still live under their roof. But Jeni and Ray are certainly, as you could imagine, in a position of having to count their pennies as the cost of living keeps going up. And therefore, they are watching the pledges made in this election campaign very, very closely. They join me now for an update on how things are going so far. Jeni and Ray, good morning. Welcome. Thank you to the both of you for joining me.
Good morning, David.
Good morning, David. Good morning.
Tell me, one of the biggest announcements by both of the major parties this campaign has been last weekend's unveiling of their plans to boost housing affordability. And the government had its $10 billion housing fund, promising to build 100,000 new homes and allow first home buyers to purchase with a 5% deposit. The opposition plans to allow first-time buyers of newly built homes to deduct interest payments on their mortgage from their income taxes. That means a fair saving, $11,000 a year. The average person on an average income would be better off. And also allowing them to pull a maximum of $50,000 from their superannuation to help pay for house deposits. Now, I know you've got members of your family wanting to get into the housing market either now or in the not-too-distant future. Which of the policies, Jeni, do you think offers young Australians the best chance of doing that, or neither?
I'd like to think that all of our children could own their own home at some point in the future. And yes, it's certainly getting very, very difficult. Our kids have less disposable income and higher debts and the cost of living. So that's certainly getting very, very hard for them. I would be concerned, firstly, I guess, about, yes, how is the government going to afford this? And whether perhaps the lower deposit, all money that you borrow has to be paid back at some point. So if you start off with a lower deposit, then you still have to pay it eventually. So would that inadvertently encourage people to borrow more than they can actually afford, perhaps?
It's a very good point, actually. Ray, do you agree? Are you a little bit suspicious of that aspect of what the government's offering?
Yeah, I agree absolutely with Jen. And I also, when it comes to the kids' super and being able to pay that back, borrow on their retirement fund, I worry about the long-term cost of that to them. Obviously, when they are retired, we've got to be able to afford that as well. So, yeah, I'm not sure that that's a really good idea either.
Yeah, well, certainly the government, well, I guess both sides have been heavily criticised for both policies, really, but it'll be interesting to see how they pan out. There's also, of course, been tax cuts galore. In fact, I think the first big announcement was tax cuts for Australian voters. The coalition was offering cheaper petrol for 1 year, thanks to halving the fuel excise, but only for 1 year. The government was offering tax cuts to save most Australians roughly $5 a week in the first year and $10 a week after that. And then there's been a one-off tax offset of up to $1,200 for middle income earners promised this week by Peter Dutton. Ray, could I ask you, and in fact the both of you, do tax cuts matter that much if they're only a short-term fix? What are your thoughts on what's been offered tax cut-wise?
I think tax cuts, if they are only going to be short-term, are only a temporary measure. People need a long-term security in their income, and they need to be able to make sure that we can afford this cost of living that we're going through at the moment.
What do you think, Jeni? Do you agree, or is any short-term gain financially better than nothing at all?
Oh, look, I think any help and any money that can go back into your family budget is, of course, helpful. But again, I agree with Ray that if it's only short-term, it's going to flip at some point, and we're going to be right back where we started. I know running our own household budget, you have to make sure you've got enough coming in to cover your costs. There's always going to be a little bit of sacrifice as we go along. So I see some of this cost of living increase as that sacrifice that we're all having to make at the moment. And we just need the right person to do the budget to make sure it's going to go around everyone.
The coalition has also pledged, and I guess a lot of pledges made in the campaign so far. I can't really talk about them all, but the other big one, and I know it did come up, Jeni, when you and I were talking before the election was called about, what you're hoping will come out of this campaign and what might sway you. The coalition yesterday pledged to invest $100 million to getting more GPs into regional Australia and 200 extra regional medical Commonwealth-supported places. How welcome would this commitment be for your family and other families like yours?
Oh, very welcome indeed. I can remember the times when, if our kids were sick, you could phone up, you could get a doctor's appointment same day. It was always bulk billed. And now you've almost got a plan to be sick a month ahead of time so you can get in to see anyone. I mean, we're in desperate need of a complete overhaul to our healthcare system. We need more GPs, more urgent care centres, more support for mental health, more bulk billing. And I mean, it should be regardless of your income, your race, your gender, everything. Everyone should have access to the top quality care that we've got here in Australia. We just can't seem to get enough of the doctors and the centres in place.
So can I ask both of you just quickly, nearly out of time for this particular session, but so far in the campaign, has either leader, either party swayed you in any way, or what's your overall take on what's been offered and how the campaign's been carried out by both leaders so far?
I mean, we've always pretty much voted on one side, and I think this is probably the first election where I've looked at both sides going, wow, I don't know how either side's going to afford this. They've got some great policies there, but no transparency as to how they're going to happen. And it's definitely making me think a little harder about who I want to vote for.
Ray, what about you? Are you still sort of dyed in the wool one way or the other, or are you open to what's offered in the remainder of the campaign?
No, I'm still undecided as well at this stage of the campaign. As Jen said, both parties are offering good things for the voter, but it just, it'll depend. We've still got to make that decision. We're still a little bit undecided in this household.
Fair enough. Well, look forward to talking to you both in the remaining weeks of the campaign. A lot can change in a week, so I'll be interested to gauge your thoughts on what's released and what's promised, and perhaps what's repealed in the next week or so. But very much appreciate you following the campaign and sharing your thoughts with our listeners this morning. Jeni and Ray, thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.